chosen one. Each of the 7 tests was designed to break a different part of you, but God is saying something over you that you may not have had the strength to believe until today. I am impressed. You passed all 7. Not because you were perfect, not because you never cried, not because you handled every moment with calm, beautiful faith. You passed because the pain did not get permission to become your identity. You passed because betrayal touched your heart, but did not turn you cold. Delay touched your trust, but did not make you curse the promise. Rejection touched your identity, but did not make you beg for a name God had already given you. Misunderstanding touched your voice, but did not make you abandon truth. Distraction touched your vision, but did not purchase your future. Loneliness touched your obedience, but did not make you bow to what was convenient. This is not a casual message. This is a Sunday reset for the chosen one who is tired of surviving without understanding. The 7 tests were not random, they were a map. And when you see the map, you will stop calling yourself broken. You will stop looking at every scar as proof that something went wrong. Some scars are not signs of failure. Some scars are evidence that the fire came close, but it did not consume you. I hear the Father saying this over the one who has been quiet too long. I saw what tried to break you. I saw the night you almost gave up. I saw the morning you still got out of bed. I saw the message you did not send, the revenge you did not take, and the door you finally stopped knocking on. You may have thought the tests came to expose your weakness. They did not. The tests exposed the places where strength had been buried under survival. They revealed what you still carried after people left. They revealed what remained when the room got quiet. They revealed the part of you that still believed, even with tears in your eyes. This is why the first truth must be received slowly. God did not test you because he was confused about who you are. He already knew. The test was not for his information. The test was for your revelation, because there are things inside you that you only recognize after pressure makes pretending impossible. A test does not create the gold. It reveals what cannot burn. A fire does not give gold its nature. It separates the gold from what was never meant to stay. That is what happened to you. Something false was pulled away. Something real survived. And the real thing in you is stronger than you have been told. There were 7 chambers, 7 pressures, 7 places where the old version of you tried to keep control. 1 came for your trust. 1 came for your identity. 1 came for your patience. 1 came for your voice. 1 came for your heart. 1 came for your vision. 1 came for your obedience. This is the 7-part breaking map. It is not a map of how you failed. It is a map of how you were formed. It is not punishment. It is not abandonment. It is not proof that God stopped caring. It is the hidden record of every place where pain asked for ownership, and your spirit refused to sign the paper. The first test touched your trust. That test usually arrives quietly. It does not always look like a battle. It looks like silence. It looks like unanswered prayer. It looks like a door closing after you finally had the courage to hope. It looks like watching someone else receive what you have been begging God to release. That kind of delay can make the heart suspicious. You begin to wonder if you heard wrong. You wonder if the promise was only your imagination. You wonder if God was near when you first believed, but distant when the waiting became heavy. The trust test is painful because it does not attack your schedule first. It attacks your picture of God. You thought the question was, when will it happen? But the deeper question was, who will God be to you while it has not happened yet? Will he still be good when the evidence looks unfinished? Will he still be faithful when the answer takes longer than your strength expected? Will you still call him Father when your emotions feel abandoned? You passed more times than you realize. You passed when you prayed through disappointment. You passed when you did not curse the promise. You passed when you were confused, but still chose not to build a theology out of one painful season. You passed when you admitted that waiting hurt, but refused to call waiting hatred. Trust is not pretending delay does not hurt. Trust is refusing to let delay become your final truth. It is the quiet decision to say, I do not understand this, but I will not accuse God from inside a chapter I have not finished reading. That sentence alone may have carried you through more nights than anyone knows. The trust test was designed to break the part of you that needed constant proof, not because proof is evil. God knows you are human. He knows you need comfort. But there is a kind of faith that cannot be built on visible movement alone, because the next season of your life will require obedience before the confirmation arrives. That silence did not mean absence. That silence was a classroom. The room felt empty, but it was not empty. Your flesh was loud. Your fear was loud. Your memories were loud. And beneath all of it, God was teaching your spirit how to hear without panic and how to remain without being entertained by constant signs. There is a reason you are still here. You waited longer than you wanted. You cried more than you admit. You asked questions you were afraid to say out loud. And still, something in you did not fully let go. That remaining is not small. That remaining is evidence. The trust test touched you, but it did not own you. The second test touched your identity. This one came through people. It came through rejection. It came through being overlooked. It came through rooms where you felt tolerated but not chosen. It came through comparison, silence, cold responses, and the strange pain of watching others be celebrated for things you carry deeply. This test is dangerous because rejection speaks like a prophet when your identity is tired. It tells you that you are too much. It tells you that you are not enough. It tells you that your difference is a defect. It tells you that the closed door has the authority to rename you. But a closed door does not have that power unless you give it your crown. You were not less chosen when they did not invite you. You were not less chosen when they misunderstood you. You were not less chosen when they preferred someone easier to control. You were not less chosen when your gifts made people uncomfortable. Their reaction was information, not identity. The identity test asks one painful question. Can you keep the name God gave you when people stop using it? Can you remain steady when applause disappears? Can you be faithful in hidden places when nobody is impressed by your obedience? Can you stop auditioning for rooms that were never built to recognize the oil on your life? You almost broke when you started explaining too much. You almost broke when you tried to become smaller so people would feel safe around you. You almost broke when you wondered if being different meant being wrong. You almost broke when their silence made you question the sound of your own calling. But something happened, slowly, quietly. You stopped begging people to confirm what God had already named. You stopped chasing warmth from those who kept you in emotional winter. You stopped treating rejection like a verdict. You began to realize that some exclusions are not punishments. Some exclusions are protection with a closed door. There are rooms that would have praised your gift while draining your soul. There are people who would have used your sensitivity but mocked your depth. There are relationships that would have loved your light only as long as it served their shadow. God did not remove you because you were unwanted. He removed you because you were being misread. That does not mean it did not hurt. It hurt. Being overlooked hurts. Being dismissed hurts. Being replaced hurts. Being treated like your presence is optional can cut deeply, especially when you have spent your life giving more than people noticed. But the pain of rejection does not get to become the proof of your worth. God was not humiliating you. He was freeing your name from other people's mouths. He was teaching you that identity cannot be rented from attention. It cannot be borrowed from praise. It cannot be built on being included. Anything people can give and remove in the same week is too fragile to carry your destiny. And you passed when you stayed true without performing. You passed when you chose peace over proving. You passed when you let them misunderstand you without running back to edit the story. You passed when you finally realized that being hidden from the wrong people can be mercy, and being unseen by them does not mean being unseen by God. Chosen one, hear this deeply. Your identity survived rejection. Your trust survived delay. These are not small victories. These are foundations. If trust had broken, you would not be able to follow the voice of God into the unknown. If identity had broken, you would confuse every closed door with a personal curse. That is why these two tests came first. Trust teaches you that God is still good when the path is unclear. Identity teaches you that you are still called when people cannot confirm it. Together, they make a soul hard to manipulate. Together, they make a person who can walk into the next season without needing the crowd to carry them. The next tests go deeper. They touch the inner world. They touch the place where timing, truth, and tenderness live. But before you see those rooms, let this first revelation settle. You are not behind because you were delayed. You are not nameless because you were rejected. You are not broken because the fire touched you. The fire came close. It burned what could not follow. It exposed what could not carry the weight. But it did not destroy the part of you that belongs to God. That is why heaven can look at the hidden battles you survived and say, I saw it, I measured it, I know what it cost, and chosen one, you passed. The third test touched your patience. This one did not always feel dramatic. It felt ordinary. It felt like another morning with the same prayer unanswered. It felt like another week of doing the right thing with no visible movement, while everyone around you seemed to be stepping into doors you had been waiting beside for years. Patience is not a soft test. It is one of the most misunderstood fires. People think patience means sitting still with a smile, but real patience is what happens when your soul wants to force a door, your fear wants to create a backup plan, and your flesh wants to call anxiety wisdom. You did not only wait for an answer, you waited with memories. You waited with disappointment. You waited while your body carried the ache of hope that had been stretched too long. And some days, the hardest part was not the delay itself. It was having to keep living while your promise felt suspended in the air. This test was designed to break the part of you that needed speed to feel safe. That part is human. It wants evidence. It wants movement. It wants to know that the pain has an expiration date. But God was forming something deeper than excitement. He was training timing inside you. The patience test asked a question your mouth may never have spoken. Can you remain faithful without trying to rescue yourself from the process? Can you stop confusing slowness with rejection? Can you stop calling preparation failure just because it does not look impressive from the outside? There were moments when you almost moved too early. You almost answered from fear. You almost accepted less because waiting for better made you feel foolish. But you passed when you did not betray your future in panic. You passed when you let an easy option expire. You passed when you chose alignment over relief. You passed when you felt the pressure to prove that your life was moving, but still refused to manufacture a testimony that God had not authored. The patience test was not sent to make you passive. It was sent to make you precise. There is a difference between delay and divine timing. Delay feels like something holding you back. Divine timing feels slow, but it is carrying protection you cannot see yet. It is saving you from what your desperation would have chosen. So God slowed the flesh. He slowed the impulse to prove. He slowed the need to be seen. He slowed the part of you that thought movement always meant obedience. And while you were frustrated, He was teaching you how to move only when peace and instruction agreed. There is something many chosen ones feel but rarely name. The mind used to feel clearer when you were younger. Your imagination was more alive. Your instincts felt quicker. Your spirit seemed to receive without fighting through so much noise. You could learn, create, wonder, and believe without carrying 1,000 invisible weights. Not because you were better then, not because childhood was perfect, but because there was a childlike connection before pressure trained you to split from yourself. There was a simplicity before survival became your daily language. There was a natural clarity before modern noise. Disappointment and exhaustion taught your mind to scatter. Later in this message, I will show you something a small group of neuroscientists found about restoring that inner clarity. Do not chase it yet. Just hold the question quietly. What if part of your struggle was not moral failure, but a lost connection inside the very system God gave you to receive, create, discern, and obey? The fourth test touched your voice. This is the test many chosen ones mistake for humility. They think they are being peaceful when they are actually hiding. They think they are being wise when they are afraid to be clear. They think silence is always holy because speaking has cost them so much before. The voice test came through misunderstanding. It came through being talked over. It came through being punished for honesty. It came through moments when you said something true and someone twisted it until you began to doubt your own discernment. That kind of pain can teach the tongue to disappear. At first, silence protected you. It helped you survive rooms where truth was not safe. It kept you from wasting sacred words on people who only wanted ammunition. But there comes a moment when the same silence that once protected you begins to imprison you, because fear starts wearing the clothing of wisdom. Silence can be wisdom, but hiding is fear. Restraint can be holy, but disappearance is not obedience. Gentleness can carry truth, but people-pleasing buries it. Peace can make you quiet, but shame makes you voiceless. And God did not give you a voice, so pain could train it into exile. This test was designed to break the part of you that still believed your truth needed permission. It touched the place where old criticism still lived. It touched the memory of being too much. It touched the fear that if you spoke with clarity, love would leave, doors would close, and people would call you difficult. You almost broke when you kept editing yourself into something smaller. You almost broke when you apologized for your discernment. You almost broke when you knew what needed to be said, but swallowed it until your body carried the sentence. You almost broke when peace became performance, but you passed in hidden ways. You passed when you stopped explaining to people committed to misunderstanding you. You passed when you spoke once, clearly, and did not chase the echo. You passed when you refused to use truth as a weapon, but also refused to bury truth to keep false peace alive. The voice test is not about becoming loud, it is about becoming clean. A clean voice does not need revenge to be powerful. A clean voice does not need to humiliate people to be heard. A clean voice can say yes without fear, no without hatred, and enough without needing a courtroom. This is why God has been teaching you the difference. You are not being trained to talk more. You are being trained to speak from the right place. Not from panic, not from performance, not from injury, not from the need to prove, from alignment, from conviction, from the quiet place where truth has no need to shout. The fifth test touched your heart. This one may have been the most tender. It came through betrayal. It came through people who knew where you were, soft and pressed there anyway. It came through disappointment that felt personal, because the wound came from someone you trusted with access. The heart test is not only about what they did, it is about what their actions tried to make you become. Betrayal does not only hurt the memory, it tries to rewrite the future. It whispers that love is unsafe. It tells you, Tenderness is foolish. It tells you that the only way to survive is to become cold before anyone can touch you again. This test was designed to break your capacity for tenderness, not your ability to be naive, not your habit of overgiving. Those needed healing. But tenderness itself was under attack, because a chosen one with a hard heart may still function, but cannot fully carry the assignment of love. You almost broke when you decided never to care like that again. You almost broke when every new person had to pay for what an old person did. You almost broke when boundaries became walls with no doors. You almost broke when discernment began to sound like suspicion. But you passed when you chose wisdom without hatred. You passed when you allowed grief to tell the truth, but refused to let grief become your God. You passed when you forgave without reopening access. You passed when you stopped confusing a soft heart with an unguarded life. God did not ask you to keep every door open to prove that you are healed. He did not ask you to keep bleeding in places where people keep calling your pain sensitivity. Forgiveness can release the debt without restoring the same position. Mercy can be real while access changes. Love can remain while proximity ends. There is a tenderness in you that survived. It may be quieter now. It may move slower. It may ask better questions before opening, but it is still there. You still care. You still feel. You still want what is pure. You still ache when something sacred is damaged. You still recognize goodness when it walks in clean. That is evidence. A cold heart does not grieve lost tenderness. A dead heart does not long for clean love. The fact that you still desire what is true means betrayal did not finish its work. The wound touched you, but it did not become your master. The disappointment entered your story, but it did not get the final word. This is where the Sunday rest matters. Let your body hear what your spirit has already survived. You have walked through trust, identity, patience, voice, and heart. That is a lot of weight to name at once. Let the recognition settle. You do not have to turn every insight into action today. Feel your shoulders for a moment. Notice your breathing. Notice the part of you that has been bracing for the next sentence, the next demand, the next battle. There is nothing to prove in this breath. There is nothing to earn in this moment. You are allowed to receive truth without performing readiness. Breathe once. Slowly, let the air reach the places that have been carrying old conversations. Let your jaw loosen. Let your hands unclench. The God who saw you in the fire is not rushing you out of healing. He knows how long you stood there. He knows what it costs to keep your heart alive. And as this truth settles, do not miss what has already been revealed. Your patience survived delay. Your voice survived misunderstanding. Your heart survived betrayal. These are not small things. These are sacred signs. The next tests will touch your future, but the inner world had to be named first. The sixth test touched your vision. This test does not always arrive like an attack. Sometimes it arrives like noise. Sometimes it arrives like drama. Sometimes it arrives like one more urgent thing that pulls your eyes away from what God already showed you. You may have thought the heart test was the hardest, but the vision test is where many people lose the future quietly. They do not fall in one dramatic moment. They scatter. They drift. They spend their focus on things that never had the authority to shape their calling. Vision is not only what you see. Vision is what you refuse to keep staring at. That matters, because attention is not small. Attention is agreement. Every day, something asks for your eyes, your energy, your imagination, and your fear. The vision test came through distraction. It came through comparison. It came through emotional chaos. It came through people who needed your attention more than they respected your purpose. It came through the strange pull to study everyone else's life, while your own assignment waited in silence. You almost broke when you forgot what God showed you. You almost broke when the noise became louder than the instruction. You almost broke when someone else's progress made your process feel foolish. You almost broke when your attention became a marketplace, and every fear came to buy a piece of your future. This test was designed to break the part of you that still believed urgency was the same as direction. Not everything loud is sent by God. Not everything sudden is an assignment. Not every emotional pull deserves obedience. Some things only arrive to see if your eyes are still available for purchase. The enemy does not always destroy vision by attacking it. Sometimes he buries it under noise. He gives you 1,000 things to react to until you have no strength left to respond to God. He gives you problems that feel important, but leave your spirit empty after you chase them. You passed when you started protecting your focus. You passed when you stopped feeding every conversation. You passed when you let drama continue without your participation. You passed when you realized that peace is not a mood. Peace is a boundary around what God is building. The vision test asked a hidden question. Can you keep seeing what God showed you when everything around you demands your eyes? Can you keep your attention consecrated when the world rewards distraction? Can you keep a quiet yes inside you while noise tries to make your calling feel distant? There were days when your vision felt faint. You did not lose it. It was covered. It was covered by exhaustion. It was covered by disappointment. It was covered by too many voices speaking into places they never prayed over. But underneath all of that, the original picture was still alive. God was not angry because your focus got tired. He was teaching you how to recover it. He was teaching you that the next season would require a cleaner gaze. You cannot carry a holy assignment while letting every argument, every fear, and every comparison sit at the table of your mind. This is why some things stopped satisfying you. The drama that used to pull you in started feeling heavy. The conversations that used to feel normal started feeling draining. The habits that once helped you escape began to feel like theft. That was not boredom. That was discernment returning. Before the final test, there is one hidden layer beneath all 7. Every test required discernment, memory, clarity, emotional regulation, and the ability to hear God beneath noise. So, if your mind has felt foggy, scattered, or disconnected, do not shame yourself. There may be a deeper reason. The 7 tests were spiritual, but they also touched your nervous system, your memory, your focus, and your ability to create. A chosen one cannot keep calling every foggy season a lack of faith when the body and brain have been carrying years of pressure. The next thing I share is not a replacement for prayer, obedience, or healing. It is a practical bridge for those who feel their God-given clarity has been buried. This is for the one who remembers being sharper before survival became normal. This is for the one who used to learn faster, imagine more freely, and feel the pull of purpose without fighting through so much internal static. Every test required inner clarity. Trust required clarity when delay tried to become evidence against God. Identity required clarity when rejection tried to rename you. Patience required clarity when fear wanted movement. Voice required clarity when truth and fear were wrestling inside your mouth. Heart required clarity when betrayal tried to turn wisdom into suspicion. Vision required clarity when the world tried to scatter your attention. And obedience, the final test, will require clarity when nobody can walk the road for you. That is why this matters right here. This is not for people looking for a shortcut around character. There is no sound, tool, or method that can replace surrender. Nothing can obey for you. Nothing can forgive for you. Nothing can choose holiness for you. But sometimes, The system God gave you to receive, create, and decide has been carrying more damage than you realized. Many chosen ones do not feel lazy, they feel blocked. They do not feel unintelligent, they feel suppressed. They do not feel empty. They feel like something powerful inside them has been covered by years of pressure, survival, disappointment, and modern noise. I have heard stories like this from people who thought their life was marked by bad luck. One woman believed her family carried a shadow over everything they touched. Every breakthrough seemed to collapse. Every door seemed to close late. She did not just feel disappointed, she felt trained to expect loss. Then she began to understand something different. What she had called a curse was partly a pattern of disconnection, stress, and buried capacity. Her life did not change because she denied pain. It changed because she stopped agreeing that pain was her permanent nature. That is a very different kind of healing. There is a scientific layer that carries real weight here. Dr. Roger Sperry won the Nobel Prize for research connected to the divided brain. His work helped reveal something most people never hear about in church or school. The brain has two hemispheres, and when they communicate in deeper unity, the whole system can operate with more power. This is not cold science, it is wonder. The human mind is one of the most mysterious gifts God placed inside the body. When the left and right sides of the brain work in harmony, people can experience clearer thought, more creative insight, and a deeper ability to enter what researchers often call flow state. Think about the kind of state where an inventor sees a solution before the world understands it. Think about Nikola Tesla solving problems that seemed impossible. Think about Steve Jobs seeing a device before culture knew it needed one. Think about Taylor Swift standing before thousands and moving with full creative presence. That kind of flow is not random. It is not only talent. It is a state where the mind becomes unified enough for the gift to move without so much friction. And here is the part that feels almost sacred. Research has pointed to a shocking decline from childhood to adulthood. A very high number of children show signs of creative genius. Very few adults keep that level of creative connection. So the question becomes painful. What happened? Where did the clarity go? Where did the wonder go? Where did the quickness, the imagination, and the clean inner knowing become buried? Modern life trains the mind to split. Constant noise, constant pressure, constant scrolling, constant stress, constant comparison. Years of survival can teach the brain to stay reactive instead of receptive. You are still gifted, but the gift has to push through more resistance than God ever intended. That is why Dr. Daniel Barone, a neurologist in New York, and a team around him spent long hours working with neural sync technology. They were looking at whole brain activation, not cheap copies, not a meditation app, not an expensive machine that only certain people could access. They developed an 8-minute targeted auditory sequence designed to help reconnect both hemispheres of the brain. It is called the Genius Switch. It is not a replacement for prayer. It is not a replacement for obedience. It is not a promise that every problem disappears overnight. It is a practical way to support the clarity that many chosen ones feel they lost. You use headphones. You close your eyes. You listen for 8 minutes a day. That is it. No complicated ritual. No expensive equipment. No need to perform spirituality for something to begin working beneath your awareness. This is why the bridge feels important. If the 7 tests have left your mind tired, foggy, or scattered, you do not need more shame. You may need restoration. You may need to let the system God gave you begin to work in greater unity again, so your discernment is not fighting through unnecessary inner noise. Some colleagues believed this kind of technology would be valuable even at $500. That is not hard to understand when some people pay hundreds of dollars for one session of specialized training, and some home machines cost thousands. But that is not where the team placed it. It was first released at $49, and for those who find it through this page, it is available today for $39. You also receive 4 bonuses. 1 is a guided visualization, 1 is a smart grocery guide, 1 is a classic book on receiving and creating a better life, 1 is a printable habit guide. There is also a full money-back guarantee. Listen once, listen for weeks, listen as many times as you need. If it does not support you, you are not trapped. That matters, because anything connected to healing should not pressure you with fear. It should give you room to test it with peace. There is one warning. If you search online for similar tracks, you may find many things using similar language. Most of them do not contain the same neural sync technology. They are often labeled that way for attention. The actual sequence is only made available through the direct page from Dr. Barone and his team. If you want to see what 8 minutes a day does for your clarity, the link in the description points to where Dr. Barone and his team made it available. No pressure, let your spirit confirm. Just headphones, eyes closed, 8 minutes. Then return to the truth of this message, because the final test is not about clarity alone. The 7th test touched your obedience. This is the one heaven remembers differently than people do. People may remember what you lost. They may remember who left. They may remember the visible parts of the story. But heaven remembers the moment you obeyed while still hurting. Obedience is easy to admire after the reward appears. It is harder to choose when the room is empty. It is harder to choose when nobody understands the instruction. It is harder to choose when the easier path looks reasonable and the holy path feels lonely. This test was designed to break the part of you that wanted company more than confirmation. That does not mean you were wrong to want support. You are human. Even strong people need hands to hold. But there are moments when God asks for a yes that nobody else can give with you. The obedience test came through lonely choices. It came through walking away when staying would have been easier to explain. It came through closing a door without having the next one fully open. It came through doing the right thing when no one clapped, and no one understood the cost. You almost broke when convenience started sounding like wisdom. You almost broke when your heart wanted a sign before surrender. You almost broke when you delayed the instruction because you wanted one more confirmation from people who were not assigned to carry your future. But you passed when you obeyed while still trembling. You passed when you moved without applause. You passed when you gave God your yes before your emotions caught up. You passed when you did not use loneliness as an excuse to return to what He had already delivered you from. I hear the Father saying this: you did not pass because nothing hurt. You passed because pain did not become your master. You did not pass because you never questioned. You passed because questions did not become rebellion. You did not pass because you were fearless. You passed because fear did not get the final vote. That is why the 7th test completes the map. Trust kept you with God in silence. Identity kept you steady in rejection. Patience kept you from moving too early. Voice kept truth alive in you. Heart kept tenderness from dying. Vision kept your future from being scattered. Obedience proved that your yes was real. Chosen one, this is not small. A person can look spiritual and still refuse obedience. A person can speak beautifully and still run from the instruction. A person can know the language of faith and still bow to comfort. But you gave God something deeper than language. You gave Him movement. And this is where the future begins to open. Not because the tests were easy, not because you enjoyed the fire, not because every wound is suddenly painless. The future opens because the part of you that pain tried to purchase is still in the hands of God. There is a kind of evidence that cannot be measured by applause. It is not loud. It does not always look impressive to people. It is the evidence of what remained in you after everything that tried to empty you had finished speaking. You may still feel tired. You may still feel tender. You may still have moments when old memories rise and ask for your attention. But do not confuse healing in progress with failure. Do not confuse a scar with a sentence. Do not confuse the need for rest with the loss of your calling. The proof that you passed is not that nothing hurts anymore. The proof is that pain did not become your ruler. You can remember what happened without handing it the throne. You can admit what broke your heart without letting it write the rest of your life. You passed when you no longer needed everyone to understand you, and that is evidence. You passed when you felt pain without making pain your name, and that is evidence. You passed when you set boundaries without hatred, and that is evidence. You passed when you waited without worshipping the timeline, and that is evidence. You passed when you obeyed without applause, and that is evidence. You passed when tenderness still survived inside you, and that is evidence. You passed when your spirit could still sense calling after so many seasons tried to make you numb, and that is evidence. There were days when you did not look victorious. There were days when you looked exhausted. There were days when you only had enough strength to do the next right thing, and even that felt like carrying a mountain with tired hands. But heaven measures differently than people do. People often measure the outside. God sees the hidden choice. People measure the result. God sees the restraint. People measure what you produced. God sees what you refused to become. And there were many times when your greatest victory was not what you did, but what you did not allow pain to do through you. You did not let betrayal turn you into a betrayer. You did not let rejection make you reject your own soul. You did not let delay make you curse the promise. You did not let misunderstanding make you abandon truth. You did not let loneliness make you bow to what was never assigned to you. That is why this moment matters. The tests were not only survived, they were answered. You answered with your tears. You answered with your silence. You answered with your restraint. You answered with your return to prayer after disappointment had made prayer feel heavy. And now the 7 reversals begin to appear. The thing that looked like abandonment became anchoring. The trust test did not leave you empty. It taught you that God could still be present when life felt unfinished. It taught you to stop treating silence like absence. The thing that looked like rejection became separation from false approval. The identity test did not erase your name. It revealed where you had been renting worth from unstable rooms. It showed you that the people who could not name you correctly were not qualified to define you permanently. The thing that looked like delay became trained timing. The patience test did not make you powerless. It made you precise. It taught you that movement is not always obedience, and waiting is not always weakness. It made your yes less impulsive and more holy. The thing that looked like silencing became purified speech. The voice test did not steal your words. It cleaned their source. It taught you when silence is wisdom, when silence is fear, and when truth must be spoken without revenge in the mouth. The thing that looked like betrayal became discerning love. The heart test did not destroy your tenderness. It taught tenderness how to stand with wisdom. It taught you that forgiveness can be real while access changes. It taught you that love does not require self-abandonment. The thing that looked like distraction became consecrated focus. The vision test did not prove you had lost your future. It showed you where your attention was leaking. It taught you that not every urgent voice deserves your eyes, and not every emotional pull deserves your obedience. The thing that looked like loneliness became proof of surrender. The obedience test did not show that you were alone. It showed that your yes was real when no crowd was available to carry it. It showed that your calling was not dependent on being understood. What felt like abandonment was actually anchoring. What felt like rejection was actually refinement. What felt like delay was actually timing. What felt like silence was actually purification. What felt like betrayal was actually discernment. What felt like loneliness was actually surrender. Chosen one, receive that slowly. You are not standing where you once stood. You may remember the fire, but you are not inside it the same way anymore. You may still smell smoke on your garments, but the smoke is not your identity. It is only proof that you came through something real. There is no need to rush this part. You have stayed with something sacred. You have listened as old rooms were named. You have allowed truth to touch places you may have avoided for a long time. That takes courage, even when no one sees it. Let your breath slow. Let your shoulders come down. Let the part of you that has been bracing for another battle receive this. Not everything ahead is a test. Some things ahead are fruit. Some things ahead are answers. Some things ahead are quiet doors opening without the old violence around them. Breathe once. Let the air reach the part of you that has been waiting for permission to stop fighting. You do not have to prove that the tests were real. God knows. You do not have to convince every person who misread your process. God saw. You do not have to drag old pain into the next season to prove you survived it. There is a release happening here, not a dramatic one, a deep one. Release the shame from the trust test. You were not weak because waiting hurt. You were human. You were not faithless because you had questions. You were being stretched beyond the places where easy answers could reach. Release the shame from the identity test. You were not foolish because rejection cut deeply. You were created for connection. It hurt because you cared. It hurt because you gave meaning to places that did not know how to handle your presence with honor. Release the shame from the patience test. You were not behind because the process took longer than you hoped. Some roots take time because the tree will need to stand through storms. Some promises require depth before visibility, because visibility without depth can destroy what the promise was meant to protect. Release the shame from the voice test. You were not wrong because it took time to speak again. Pain can make the mouth careful, but your voice is returning without the old panic. It is returning cleaner. It is returning steadier. It is returning with truth and mercy standing beside each other. Release the shame from the heart test. You were not cold because you needed boundaries. You were not bitter because you needed distance. You were learning how to love without bleeding on command. You were learning that a healed heart does not have to reopen every door to prove it is healed. Release the shame from the vision test. You were not a failure because distraction found you. You were tired. You were overloaded. You were surviving more than people knew. But your vision is not dead. It is being uncovered again, and what God showed you still has breath in it. Release the shame from the obedience test. You were not disobedient because obedience was hard. The cost was real. The loneliness was real. The trembling was real. But your yes was real too. And God received the yes that came from tired lips and shaking hands. There is a declaration rising now, not from ego, not from pride, from holy remembrance. I did not break. I was formed. I did not lose my name. I lost the need to borrow one. I did not miss my future. I was prepared for it. I passed through the fire, and what was false could not follow. I walked through delay, and trust still breathes. I walked through rejection, and identity still stands. I walked through silence, and truth still lives in my mouth. I walked through betrayal, and love still has a clean place in me. Let that declaration become settled, not shouted for performance. Settled. Let it move into your chest. Let it reach your memory. Let it tell every old accusation that it no longer has legal right to define what God has already covered with mercy. I hear the Father saying this over you. I am impressed, not because you were perfect, but because you remained mine. I am impressed, not because you never fell to your knees, but because you reached for me from the ground. I am impressed, not because you had no fear, but because fear did not become your God. You remained. That word is holy. You remained when your emotions were unstable. You remained when people left. You remained when the answer was delayed. You remained when you were misunderstood. You remained when the cost of obedience felt heavier than the comfort of compromise. And now, see this in your spirit. Behind you are 7 doors. You do not need to reopen them. You do not need to walk back into the rooms where you were tested. You do not need to explain the fire to people who only want to debate the smoke. The first door says trust. It is closed now. The key is in your hand. The second door says identity. It is closed now. The key is in your hand. The third door says patience. It is closed now. The key is in your hand. The fourth door says voice. The fifth says heart. The sixth says vision. The seventh says obedience. All 7 doors are behind you now, and none of them has the right to keep pulling you backward. You are not leaving those rooms empty-handed. You are leaving with keys. Those keys are not trophies for pride. They are tools for stewardship. Trust will help you enter the unknown without panic. Identity will help you stand when people misunderstand your oil. Patience will help you move when God says move, and stay when God says stay. Voice will help you speak without revenge. Heart will help you love without losing yourself. Vision will help you guard your focus from the noise. Obedience will help you say yes when comfort tries to negotiate with your calling. This is how the keys become a crown. Not a crown of ego, a crown of responsibility. A crown that says, I know what tried to own me, and I know who kept me. A crown that says, I am not untouched, but I am not defeated. A crown that says, I came through with God. Let this Sunday seal something in you. Let this week begin from peace, not panic. Let the next morning find you less afraid of what is ahead. Let your obedience feel lighter because shame has been lifted. Let your prayer feel cleaner because accusation has been silenced. The tests have spoken, but they do not get the final word. Delay spoke, but God speaks louder. Rejection spoke, but God speaks deeper. Betrayal spoke, but God speaks truer. Loneliness spoke, but God speaks nearer. And what He speaks over you is not failure. It is not shame. It is not disqualification. It is not too late. It is not too damaged. It is not too far gone. The word over you is formed. The word over you is kept. The word over you is chosen. If the clarity piece spoke to you, the link in the description is there. The genius switch is there for those who feel led to explore what 8 minutes a day can do for focus and inner clarity. No pressure. Let your spirit confirm. The message remains the center, and your peace remains more important than urgency. Do not leave this moment in a hurry. Carry it gently. Let it travel with you into the kitchen, into the car, into the quiet part of the evening, into the week that is waiting for you. Let it remind you that your life is not only a record of what hurt you, your life is a record of what God kept alive in you. He kept your trust alive. He kept your identity alive. He kept your patience alive. He kept your voice alive. He kept your heart alive. He kept your vision alive. He kept your obedience